So to conclude our lecture about the internet and internet advertising, this is a visual we looked at early on in the lecture. I want to try to pull things together now because we've traveled a long, long way here in this lecture. Discussed a lot of different things. And so how do we pull it together? What do I want to leave you guys with? Of course, the first point is that the internet is a huge disruptive innovation, one of the most disruptive innovations in history. And via, as you see, an electronically connected network of data storage locations, which are all over the world, particularly in areas with cheap real estate. A connected computer can access much of the world's information and entertainment almost instantaneously. And if you carry your computer with you all the time, you are basically, you have a lifeline to all the world's information right where you are when you need it as you go through your day. It's kind of amazing. This network reaches into continents and nations, and it's owned by a variety of private companies. So the access is something that we have to buy. If it's given to us, it's probably because somebody else is buying it. And that's in terms of the access. In terms of the data storage locations, some have huge capacity, petabytes of data happening and added every day by some of these huge internet companies, the Facebooks, the Googles, the Amazons. Some are small companies or websites, maybe just with one server where they store everything. But the data storage is owned by companies, governments, and individuals. There's also a lot of government data, defense data, etc., that every government has. And then the data. Who owns the data? They're owned by companies, governments, and individuals. And of course, who owns the data is one of the issues where the European Union and the United States maybe have some differences of opinion yet to be resolved. Some data are easily accessible with or without permission. And because sometimes you have to have a password to get it, other times, you're able just to go in and get whatever data you want in some sites. But some data are meant to be private with controlled and limited access. This is typically business data, and it's definitely governmental data. They're trying to firewall it. They're trying to keep people from hacking into the data. Data accessed by permission often involve a subscription fee or exposure to advertising messages on the part of the viewer of the data. So just think about, Facebook or Google. They're free, and the amount of data that we can all access for free is astounding with both of those companies. And the reason they let us have it is that they allow us to be targeted by people who want to sell us things. Not only that, they allow those people to use our footprint on their sites in terms of what we've done on their sites. They allow those advertisers to use what we've done on their site to know more about us and to target us better. And that's probably the most controversial part of the targeting and the advertising for those folks. And it's also the case that any database, even if you try to wall it off, is ultimately vulnerable to break-ins by hacking. It's not a bank vault. When the doors close, nothing goes in or out. It's a hermetically sealed chamber, and that is not the case with databases because there's always a line going in somehow. because you need to put more data in. Somebody does. And you often need to take data out, even if it's a very limited number of people who can do it. As long as there's a way in and a way out, somebody else can find it. And here, because the huge amount of content and huge amount of new content being added daily, effectively policing content is very difficult, if not impossible. And that's really, I think, the truth of why the content control is not very easy for companies like Facebook. There's just too much of it to control. I'm hearing now even that they're claiming they were gonna put down and take off false content about the COVID virus, but what I'm hearing now is that they're not able to do it. There's still a lot of problems with that. Bad actors posting untrue and purposely misleading, malevolent, or even dangerous content. And then to kind of go back to, where we end up with the internet, it's that it's disrupted almost every aspect of our society, causing major changes in how we consume content, shop, and communicate, and other things. And yes, the internet is the new king, if you will, or queen, or leader, or boss, or major domo of advertising spending in the U.S. and internationally, taking the crown from television, which had the crown from really after World War II up till, 5-10 years ago. As we kind of pull together our thoughts about internet advertising, I'm not going to talk too much about the quality of the impression, I guess, because there's so many kinds of internet advertising. There's video, there are banners, there's rich media, and some of it's shown on mobile phones, some of it's shown on larger screens, laptops, whatever. So there's a lot of it. I think, though, that you'll see the overall CPM is fairly low. It's the greenish area here in the middle. It says online. Premium display is the rich media. You see it has a higher CPM. Video has a higher CPM. General display is just banners. Very low CPM. I think the low CPM in general kind of reflects the fact that internet advertising is pretty intrusive, and the way impressions are counted officially by the IAB means you don't have to do much to get an impression. So there's some skepticism about how many people actually see the advertising on the internet. I think that advertisers are definitely concerned about. Here are a lot of the issues that we've talked about in this lecture. We talked about ad blocking, fraud. We just went over these a minute ago, so I hopefully don't have to repeat them all. But again, I'm trying to pull things together. And here are a lot of the issues with internet media. And as we saw, even Zoom, this new technology, has got some kind of funny business going on in the background in terms of people being able to access data that without permission. How to synthesize all of this. Now here we are, me trying to pull this all together, and boy, that ain't easy. I'm just going to do my best here. I don't want to leave you with just here's this huge body of a presentation, and it has not been kind of pulled together and summarized and synthesized. Say that fast 3 times. I've tried to come up with themes for a lot of the different media we've talked about. Telemarketing is the dark horse, etc. TV's the old king. Anyway, and I want to try to do that for internet, in the hopes that, if you take away 1 or 2 things from this presentation, this will be one of those things you take away, and that it will be helpful to you, I hope. So here it is. Here's the sentence. I'm going to read it. Internet advertising as a medium is huge. It's new. It's immensely powerful. But it's permissive. It's potentially dangerous. And as a medium, the internet can either be immensely enlightening and send knowledge and learning into all these corners of the world that have access to the internet, recognizing that not everyone in every geography has full broadband access. That is one of the issues with the internet. But it certainly can, for those who have it, be enlightening and magical. Internet content can also be dangerous, even deadly, depending on who is putting up the content. And the internet is open. Many of these platforms, software platforms, Facebook, etc., are open, and people are allowed to put up what they want to. And some people have bad intentions and put up things that a lot of other people look at and look at fast, because it's also fast. So that's a long sentence. I also want to summarize it. Is there a way to kind of put this into one visual or one kind of a picture I can leave you with about the internet as a medium? And pretty much impossible to do. But I think this one is kind of interesting, and I'm going to try it, and I think you might be familiar with it. Okay, this is an illustration from the book Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. I would imagine a number of you read this when you were kids, or your mom or dad or your caretaker read that to you. I read it to my daughter many times. Was often puzzled by it, to be honest with you. I wasn't quite sure what it was about, other than it was fascinating. The illustrations were fascinating. But it wasn't the typical little happy sweetie pie children's book. There was a little something more going on in this book. But, I did a Google search for an image of a monster, sort of a creative, fascinating, interesting, but dangerous monster. And somehow some of these pictures came back to me. But in looking at it and thinking about it, my question is, which one of these creatures shown in this picture is the real monster? So I think, again, it gets to the internet is on its own just a vehicle. It's just a connection to databases. It's the people who are on the other side, who control the messaging, who are the dangerous ones. The only problem with the internet as a vehicle then is that there's no filter, there's no parental control, sort of like in this picture. Okay. Next, we'll talk about mobile marketing.